Hey there, hi there, ho there. This is a look inside youth activities. I'm your host tonight, and always I am Ísgerðr or Izzy, from the Kingdom of Artemisia. And tonight I can't tell you how excited I am to have our guest.
Oh,
This is the Super Duchess Tianna Ni Coimin. She has served as Queen of Artemisia 3 times now.
yep.
She also served as landed baroness in the barony of Lochsallen, which is one of our most ancient of baronies in Artemisia. Um, she is working on becoming the first laurel on luxuriating. She loves to study and research and teach everybody about how to relax. Um, she's fearless. She's amazing. She's a pelican. And she is here to talk to us tonight about local youth guilds because she has done that and has one to brag about in the barony of Lochsallen. Um, so I'm going to turn it over to her. But before I do that, I just want to point out that sometimes some of us are actually working officers or serving in some capacity, but we are here tonight as um, Tiana and Izzy, and our opinions are not meant to be anything official. Please consult your local handbooks and guides and everything else. Our opinions are our own. So now that we did that business, I'm going to turn it over. Tell me a little bit. Did I miss anything in your introduction? I know you're just super amazing, and I want to be you when I grow up. Even though that ship sailed long ago, and I'm older than you, but
Like by that much.
I don't know about that.
Not by much at all. No, I'm a lady. No, I have many titles, but I only ever go by Tiana, so just call me Tiana.
She's amazing. So, okay, so and we're going to talk a little bit about local youth guilds, and I know that one of the things that we were just talking about just before the show was that um, these are what we're talking about is going to be um, pretty specific to probably Artemisia and how we do it here. I don't know. We're not privy to every single kingdom, obviously, in the known world, but this is an idea of what might be out there, and you can check with your local kingdoms and stuff. So tell me about. I don't remember. It's something about the flower
Mhm.
of
Oh, it's the Guild of the Crystal Bloom.
crystal bloom. That's it.
Crystal
Guild of
Bloom.
the crystal bloom. Okay.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
Well, just a little background, right? In Artemisia itself, and I know that it happens a lot in a lot of different kingdoms around the known world. When I first joined, I kind of was the kingdom babysitter. There really was no youth activities. There wasn't a youth officer. I was just Nikki in the back of the hall playing with the kids, and a lot of the people like Master Giovanni out in Arrows Flight. When he was 5 years old, he and his sisters used to hang out with me in the back and play games, right? So I was just kind of like the baronial babysitter. I used to hang out and play with all of the kids all of the time. And it became very apparent to me that kids were very much a not seen and not heard kind of part of the SCA, right? Like they don't want them in court. They didn't want them around the activities. You just kind of put them in the back and hope that they stay occupied with themselves. And that's how it was when I first kind of came around. Shortly after I became landed baroness, I became landed baroness before I even had an SCA name. When they Everybody knew me as Nikki. Everybody knew me as Nikki. And when I put my name on the ballot with Timur and said Timur and Tiana, everybody was like, "Who's this Tiana chick?" And they were really angry.
Does Nikki know?
Yeah, they literally were like, "Where's Nikki? I thought Nikki was here."
Funny.
So I became a landed baroness very early in my SCA career, and I had I pulled in when my daughter was 2 weeks old. I stepped up when my daughter was 2 months old. And I stepped down when she was 2 years old, right? So she has literally been like the kingdom child since birth. And it was very awkward to me as having an infant in the STA and having a seat in court, that people were always like, she would come and run up in the middle of court and want to sit on my lap, and people would stop her and be like, no, it's in the middle of court. No. And I was like, leave her alone. She's my kid. She's allowed to come. I'm her mom. I never stopped being her mom the whole time that she's here. Like, she can sit on my lap. She can sit on the throne. She can move around wherever she wants to. Like, and it kind of broke my heart that kids were treated that way, that they weren't allowed to be a part of court and they weren't allowed to take part in all of these activities, and nobody wanted to see them around. And so, I had to do a lot to try and do something to engage my child and want her to feel comfortable in this game that we play and want to show up. Because as a mother, that was always the biggest fight, was trying to get her to get out of the house to come to an event that we were doing, And I remember there were times when people would kind of razz me about, she would show up in her Disney princess dress. I would have, Belle's pretty yellow dress on her, and we would show up to an event and everyone would be like, oh, Nikki, if you want, I can make some garb for her. And I was like, why? She's perfectly happy wearing Belle. She's a princess right now.
Grow out of it in 2 weeks. So
yeah, right. And so I just, the first thing I want to impress upon parents in anywhere in the known world is that if your kid is not happy with what they're wearing, they're not going to show up. If they want to wear a princess dress from Disneyland, let them wear it. Do not pick that battle to fight. Let them wear whatever they want. One day, and she's 21 now. She's perfectly happy wearing garb, and she's done her research, and she loves the things that she comes up with. She, in fact, is a seamstress as a living right now. But at the time, I was not going to fight that fight with her. If she wanted to wear a Disney princess dress, I had 4 different princess dresses for her to pick from, because I wanted her to be happy and to show up and to have fun and feel beautiful no matter what she was wearing. And she grew into the historical aspect of it as she grew up. So that's kind of my first advice to parents is, don't force your historical recreation on your kids. Let them learn to love it on their own.
Yep, absolutely.
And then from there, because again, I had skin in the game. I had a kid
right
in the middle of all of this. And so over the years, I had some fantastic support. There were women in this barony and in this kingdom. I literally had to tie a scarf around my child. People always pick on moms because they're like, I can't believe you put a leash on your kid. But there were times when I tied a long scarf around her waist. Here's my little 2-year-old toddler walking around in full Elizabethan because people wanted to make garb for her. And I had a lovely silk scarf that I tied around her waist, and I kept it around her because as I turned around to talk to somebody would scoop her up and be like, the cutest baby, and walk off with her. And I had to follow the leash to find where my kid went. So it wasn't even that she was wandering off. It's that people would steal her all the time. And so I really had fantastic supports. I mean, more people than I could possibly name. They all know who they are. Please know that I love you forever. You raised my child while I was running a barony. And then shortly after that, running a kingdom. I've had so many people come and help me raise her and take care of her and play with her and keep her engaged while we were doing all of the things that we do. She has been Princess Royale 6 times. She's been Princess Royale more than anybody, I believe, anywhere has been Princess Royale. I would love to create a kind of non-standard award for anybody who's ever been the child of royalty.
Right.
I've been wanting to do this because I think it should be somewhere in the OP that somebody should be recognized for having to suffer as a child of royalty at some point in their life.
Because you're on from the second that you get to an event, and so are they at that point when they're in that position too.
Yeah, because they are held to some pretty high expectations. They are the royal children. They can't act up. Everybody knows who they are. They don't get away with anything. Like, they have to go to all of our stupid parties and our teas and all the things that they don't want to go to, you know. So, and a lot of times, like, she was my lady in waiting when I needed to have somebody with me, and that took her away from the things that she wanted to do. So, yeah, I really think that we should have some kind of unofficial acknowledgement of that.
Well, Jermaine just brought up backstage, of course, again, and as usual, is the wonderful Jermaine, who keeps me going. But she brought up, so when Baron Till and Baroness Isabeau became the first Baron and Baroness of Bronzehelm, their children were on retinue and did everything like as they always do, but I mean, so much more. And they really felt like they couldn't recognize their own children while they were on the throne. So what they did was they actually came up with the Sweet, Sweet Taste of Nepotism Award and gave that to them as they stepped down. So, here's to acknowledge the fact that we really can't give you anything, but this is something we're going to give to you. So, and they are actually they're my guests next week. So we'll talk about that. So let's go back to local youth. So you didn't have anything to do. Your kids didn't have anything to do. There wasn't local stuff. We hear that so much. So you came up with this idea of a local guild. So first, for anybody who doesn't know what a guild is, what is a guild?
I know, and just before this, remember we were looking it up in Corpora and making sure that we were following all of the rules of this. It's important to understand that the society deems that a guild is any kind of a group of people brought together by an activity that is not martialate based. That's pretty much the definition of it. As long as it is not martialate based, it's arts and sciences, it's crafts, it's service, it's whatever you want it to be. As long as it's not martialate based, it can be official or unofficial, and it's governed by every kingdom individually.
Okay.
So if you want to look up guilds in Artemisia, then you have to go to our Arts and Sciences Officers page. And we even pointed out it's on page 23 of the Artemisia Arts and Sciences Officers page, where you can see specifically what Artemisia expects out of our guild. So I can't speak for guilds in other kingdoms. Just know that it's a group of people that are brought together for an activity based experience, not necessarily a friend's experience like a household or anything like that. It's some sort of activity.
So that's why there's like sewing guilds, music guilds, that sort of thing. Okay. And so yours was specifically youth guilds. Is there an age limit to youth?
So each of our baronies, we're very fortunate now in Artemisia. Artemisia is fantastic with youth experiences, and we have lots of different creative ways for kids to get involved at a variety of different ages. And when I decided to come up with this guild, it was just me and a couple of other moms sitting around, and we were kind of bemoaning the fact that our kids have all of these activities and things outlined for them up to a certain point. Like we have the Pages Primer. I don't know if you've ever explained the Pages Primer to them.
Yep, we have.
But yeah, so we have the Pages Primer, and we have all these like activities that they can kind of checklist off and earn awards and do stuff all the way up to a certain point. But once you hit a certain age, you're like, I'm not going to go hang out at the youth tent anymore. I don't want to go do any more scavenger hunts. I don't want, you know what I mean? Like they reach a certain point, and all of a sudden now you just have like a bunch of rambunctious teenagers on the loose that are old enough to be left alone in camp by their parents, because they're like, you don't want to go to classes? Fine, stay in camp and entertain yourselves. And the parents and the kids are fine with that. But that doesn't do anything to engage them in the society. What's that?
Oh,
feral teens. Yeah.
Feral teens.
Yes. So you just have these like little packs of teenagers wandering around. And again, it's not that they're being destructive or terrible,
right,
but they're not being engaged. And what's the point of having an educational society if you are not attempting to engage people in history and recreation and at least making an effort, right? So that's kind of where this idea came from. As I was sitting around with a bunch of parents, and I thought, what can we do for the kids that are between the ages of like 12 and 17, right? Even sometimes in cases where you have like 10-year-olds that are a little bit more mature than other kids, right? I know that there were some kingdom laws that I tackled way back in the day, because it used to be that you had to have a parent on the range for anybody under the age of 18 all times.
Right.
So even when my daughter was 17 and at 50 year winning tournaments all by herself, when she came back to our kingdom, I had to sit there and babysit her and couldn't go off and do my own tournaments if I wanted to. And we were kind of bemoaning that even the Boy Scouts of America allows 8-year-olds to play with knives.
Right.
So my 16-year-old throw knives in a confined and secure location. And so we were able to get some laws changed where it was like, okay, kids to a certain age must have a parent present. Kids after that age for a little, a couple of years, I would think it's like 10 to 12 or 13 or something like that, are allowed to be dropped off at the range and have that face-to-face conversation with the range master, and then understand that, that kid has to be made very clear that if they don't follow the range rules, they will be removed from that range, and they don't get an excuse just because they're a little kid, right?
Right.
And so it just kind of like allowed for younger kids to be able to do things and to be given responsibilities and ownership of their own behavior if they want to have fun and they want to participate in things. Because we can't expect kids to develop that sense of responsibility if we don't hand things to them to be responsible for. So again, all of these things kind of came together as we were talking to the parents, and we were like, what are we offering these teenagers? What do they want? And even talking with my daughter, one of the things that we realized was they had interests. They wanted to be engaged, but they didn't have a doorway into those things. Like if you were already squired to somebody, then okay, somebody was there going to help you with armor and teach you. But if you didn't know any knights, how are you going to get squired?
Right.
And you can see the royalty and you can see the ladies in waiting and you can see the work being done. But if you didn't know any of those ladies in waiting, then you're just going to always sit in the audience and watch everybody else doing all the fun things. So it just became apparent to me that as a peer, I had access to all of these hands. I didn't need to do anything for them. I didn't need to like babysit them. It wasn't a huge burden off of my back to be able to just be the resource, that kind of the translational gap between these kids who wanted to do a thing and the people who were doing the thing. I didn't have to sit and teach them how to be a lady in waiting. I just needed to introduce them to the ladies in waiting. I didn't need to teach them how to fight or be a knight. I just needed to introduce them to the knights. And that's kind of how this all was birthed.
I like that. So more of a facilitator, really.
Yes. So I then called together all of the kids. I literally had a grown-up meeting with all of the kids. I sent word around camp at several of the events where I said, anybody from the age of 12 to 17, I want you to meet in my camp. Bring your parents with you, and we're going to have a meeting. I asked all of the parents to sit on the edge because the meeting was literally just between me and the kids. But I wanted the parents to know what was being said so that they understood kind of the expectations of it. And I had an adult conversation with these kids where I told them, I know that you have interests. I know that there are things that you want to do that are probably not things that your parents do, right? Our daughter, we call her Golden Child, because that's her roller derby name. But she really loved to do thrown weapons, like I said. And that is not a thing that Timur and I do at all. We never stepped foot on that range whatsoever. And so, but we knew the people and were able to get her involved in those things. And so I talked to the kids and I said, I know that your dad is a knight, but you don't want to fight. You'd rather get into rapier. I've heard you say that you want to get into archery, even though your mother's a laurel. And talk to them specifically about the things that they were interested in, not their parents, not their siblings or anybody else that was doing stuff. What are the things you want to do? And once they opened up to me about all the things that they were interested in, I made a pact with them. I was like, at every event, I'm going to call together a meeting and we're going to make some decisions about our group. first of all, we're going to call ourselves a guild, and I want you all to go back to your camps, and I want you to come up with names. What do you want to be called? And then, and then I had another meeting, and they decided on the name of the Guild of the Crystal Bloom, by the way, because it reminded them of like Minecraft.
Nice.
It was something that was very much them, but they liked Crystal Bloom because it was fantasy and Minecrafty, but it was also not girly or like genderized at all. It was just the Crystal Bloom. And then we sat down and we started talking about devices. What symbol do we want to use that we can put on our stuff and be proud to be us as a guild, right? And again, the whole time I'm inviting the parents to these meetings, but they don't get to participate in this because this is about the kids.
Right.
And what the promise that I made to them was, I said at every single event, I have all of their contact information. If they didn't have their own, like Facebook or Messenger or phone, then I would reach out to them through their parents. But I would reach out to them several weeks before an event. I would say, I'm going to be at this coming event. This is the task I want you all to be ready for. And then they would all come prepared. So there was one time where we went to a crown tourney, and everybody in the guild that showed up, I paired them up with, there was a couple of crown tourneys I did this with. One time I paired them all up with a knight that was fighting, or a fighter, I should say. I paired them up with a fighter, and their job was to be a page during that tournament. Because I've also learned, whenever you fight in a crown tournament, anybody who's ever done this understands that you can go into crown tournament an absolute nobody. And at the end of crown tournament, you have a million best friends. You have a million people who want to carry all of your stuff and take all of your purse to the car, and they want to touch all of your things. And it's very overwhelming. So it's nice to have somebody who's with you all day long that knows your wants and knows your likes and knows kind of, the things that you expect. So by the end of the day, if the day goes your way, then you have somebody there to help you that kind of understands you a little. And so that day I paired everybody up with a fighter and said, you are just going to be their page. If they need something from their armor bag, you're going to run out onto the field and you're going to bring them that gauntlet. Or if they need water when they come off the field, you're going to have your water ready for them. So we sat and talked about what it means to be a page, what things they could do to be a page, how they can kind of preempt their fighter and how they can talk to their fighter about things. At another crown tourney, I was like, okay, we're all going to be attendants today, right? And I'm going to pair you up with a consort. So I paired everybody up with a completely different consort. And again, we talked about the expectations of what, consort it needs to have and what they need to do and what you can do to help them. And, all the little, like, I hate to say lady in waiting because it is very genderized, but just the attendant things that they can do. There was a Melee Madness I met them all at, and I said, okay, well, during Melee Madness, it's all melees during the day, and there was often very little at the time for youth to do. So I was like, I want every one of you to teach a class. Even if it's a 15-minute skill, I want you all to teach one class. And I met with them, I emailed them back and forth or talked to them on the phone and helped them come up with a lesson plan. We came up with what kind of resources they would need. And it was so fantastic. Like one of them taught finger loop braiding. And I was like, okay, let's have a bunch of finger loop braiding supplies ready so that when people show up, they can just start learning and have a
right.
One of them just wanted to talk about what it would take historically to do a siege on a castle. And he just wanted to build up a brick castle and use his new little trebuchet to blow it up with all of his friends. But he still had to give a presentation about castle sieges. My daughter taught how to make a pouch. We took 2 pieces of fabric and we sewed those babies together and we had a little drawstring and everybody walked away with a little pouch. They didn't have complicated classes, but I wanted them to understand what it took to be able to teach a class and to be able to present it and give something to your students back that, when they had something when they left. And that way, when they went to a class in the future, they understood like why you should respect your teacher, because it takes quite a bit of effort to put on a class.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
Right. So all I did was I just tried to think of, okay, what am I going to do at the event? Well, I know, I got my pelican because I was a professional royal babysitter. Right? That's what I did all the time, was I just took care of all the royalty, because I happened to be the one to know like OP and how to set up thrones and how to do all those things. And I'm just a highly organized person. And so I was like, well, I know I'm going to go to this tournament and I'm going to have to get together all these things and get the attendants together. And I know I have this pack of little kids that can be my runners and they can do stuff. I always tell people, if you are choosing a royal retinue, always choose a couple of kids under the age of 14, because they are the ones who will super excitedly run back to camp for your mug. They will love to do that.
As a youth officer, I found that out early on. That's always really, it's nice to have the really eager ones that come always want to do something for you. And yes, you know what? Go run over there and grab this for me. It's perfect.
We should have run all the way across site to get me my mug. And they're like, yes, Your Majesty.
At last year's whipping winds, I had one of Thanos's sons running errands for me in the heat. And I asked him, okay, so, right before court, I said, so I need you to do one more thing for me. And he's just like, okay, I can do this. Like he just, all he could do to,
deep.
Yeah. And then he says, what can I do for you? And I said, I need you to sit really close because I'm going to call you up in court. And he's like, oh, I thought you were going to have me run all the way back to your tent again. I'm sorry. Thank you so much.
Yes, and definitely have a pouch of trinkets and thank you gifts. Even if you just go to the dollar store right before an event or something. It doesn't matter what it is or how expensive it is.
Absolutely.
Have little trinkets available to thank them.
So a couple of different things that I was thinking of. One is, I believe that you've had them also do things like serve a feast or make a feast, even, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, stewarding
yeah, when you do feasts, or when we did feasts, right? Sometimes the hardest part about feast was getting somebody to serve, and they'd always be like, "What? One person from every table will come up here and get food," or
right.
You got all these hands, you have all these kids, and the whole goal of this guild is to break down that barrier and get kids to meet other people. Don't just stay in your little clique and go talk about Minecraft, but like force yourself to get out and get to know people. And so I would assign them different tables. You're in charge of that table right there. Ask everybody what their name is and tell them your name, and make them all break out of their little shells and get to know everybody. And again, it was giving them tiny bits of responsibility, right? Because you can't really mess up feast. You bring a tray over and everybody's going to feed themselves and take care of it, and they're all going to be thankful for it. But it gives them a huge amount of responsibility and respect for themselves, that they feel like they're a part of things. So there's a lot of different things that we did, honestly.
Yeah, there's always there's little things that you can do with kids too, and the littler the kid too. Sometimes there was one of Sir Audie's son and Her Ladyship Alison's sons, the youngest one, Aaron, came up to me at I don't know, crown tournament 2 or 3 crowns ago, and I had nothing planned for youth that day, but he always knows to come and find me. And so it's, well, then you need to send me on a quest. You need to have me do something for you. And okay, I'm trying to think. And so I look over and I said, okay. And I see Duke Sean is there, who had just won the tournament that day. And so I said, okay, run over there. And it was kind of that lull in the afternoon before evening court, but when there's not a whole lot going on, go see if there's something you can do for His Highness. See, he's right there. And so he walks over to him and he asks him, and Sean takes his crown off and hands it to him and says, okay, now take this over and put it on my throne. And I'm like, I didn't realize it was going to be that important of a thing,
But he probably was like wide-eyed and like, I can't mess this up.
Right. He was just like, oh. And so I kind of I saw it happening. And so I walked over behind the thrones, and I'm come over here and this throne right here. And he's going, okay. And really gently put it down on the throne and, walked away beaming. And it's a 3-minute thing, but for him,
Mhm.
he got to carry the prince's crown that day. And
Yeah.
it's a big thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and
Which,
so
by the way, it's the same for any newbie. Doesn't matter their age.
absolutely,
Any newbie.
absolutely having them just join in and feel welcome instead of just feel like you're standing out like a sore thumb, like
Mhm.
everybody must know I'm new. Well, yeah, we do because we all know each other, but it's not, it's one of those things, especially post COVID. I really try to encourage people to look around and make sure, because there's been so many of us we haven't seen each other for so long. And then we finally do, and we forget to look around and see those newcomers and see those kids and have things to do. And things have changed. Like you said, when we used to have feasts, we haven't really been able to do that much.
Mhm.
Um, and well, so I was going to tell you one of the stories that we had done a few years ago at a Northern Summer Fair. We showed up at the site, and I have tons and tons of allergies, including really bad allergies to the wrong kind of wood being burned. And so
Mhm.
we showed up on site, and the landowner had been really gracious and had left this huge pile of cottonwood laying there. And so the first night, and I'm I'm co-event steward, and so I get there, and the first night I smell 2 or 3 random fires being burnt with this cottonwood, and I immediately am nauseous and sick and popping Benadryl and going, okay, I can't do this. And Sir Rothgar, Baron Rothgar, lovely man, took it upon,
Gigantic man and
giant, giant heart too, just great
yeah.
guy. Decided that he just couldn't have it with me being sick and not able to function. And so he went and he called around and found a cord of wood and had it delivered to the site the next morning.
Mhm.
But it's a cord of uncut big logs, wood, And so he grabs an axe and a couple of other axes, and he grabs all the kids on site, and he starts teaching them how to do things. And it became this huge thing the whole weekend. We were teaching them things like, it's a range now, so it's hold. If you hear hold, you see some lady wandering through who might get
Mhm.
hit by a random piece of wood flying, it's hold. And you know wait a second, stop doing that, put your foot down, and all the safety stuff built into it. And then he
Mhm.
started teaching them things like he taught them how to build palisades. And we had a river raft race for the weekend, and they actually built this really awesome raft that took, like, the only person that was faster was somebody, was Ari, on just Ari just floating down with the river instead of on something. But they just, and so then by the end of the weekend, Baroness Alora had decided that she's going to start, and they have started a forestry guild for camping events. And if they're there, they want to come and they want to help. And they had to learn how to do it properly and safely. We
Mhm.
did have one mother walk over from the side and say, okay, kids, you know that the blood goes on the inside of the body, not the out. And so that was a little sketchy, but yeah, it was.
I've taught a first aid class.
There you go.
Yeah.
But it was really, those kids learned so much and had so much fun.
Mhm.
I normally that group of kids will be off, climbing trees or finding things to do or something, but they were in the court and working the whole time. It was pretty crazy. It was really cool. So,
Yes, as a medic, right? I can't call myself chirurgeon anymore, but
right.
as a site medic, because we all know that everybody calls Tianna when there's something going on site, right? It used to be that I got called over to those kids who were jumping the campfire alone because everybody was gone to port. And so all the kids were in camp jumping campfires, and they landed in it and burned themselves.
Oh no.
All these little things that kids can get themselves into trouble for because they don't have a creative way to be a contributor and not a consumer of the SCA. So
Right.
it's better to make people be consumers or to be contributors instead of just like forcing them into the consumer piece where they just have to sit around and let things happen to them instead of being actively engaged in doing things.
Well, one of the things that we had also talked about was that sort of like what you were talking about, where if they want to wear that princess dress, then let them wear that princess dress.
Mm-hmm.
And if they want to sit in camp and play D&D or something, at least they're sitting together doing something that's social.
Right.
That
and it's not Minecraft, and it's not sitting on a phone and playing Candy Crush or something. Like it's actually involving their imaginations and doing something.
Right.
So I would much rather they sit around and play D&D.
Yes.
I would rather sit around and play D&D.
Bjar from Avakal says, totally agree with going with the grain of the wood rather than fighting it when it comes to helping youth feel included. Absolutely. So, magic, when I first started, my boys were really into magic. Mm-hmm. And every time we would get to a camping event with, a certain other group of kids from different parts of the kingdom, they knew which one they would be at. And so they would all bring their magic cards and sit under the porch. And I'm fine with that. If they're, it's better than sitting there with their handheld video games, mm-hmm. And you're still outside, you're still talking, you're having conversations with people and using your imagination. And that's really the key for me a little bit. We were also talking about.
Oh, I was just going to say, when you're engaging them with this group of kids that are all their same age, you remember that they're going to be the next generation, right? When they finally grow up and become knights, these are going to be their peers along with them. They're going to have the stories of their childhood. Our current majesties were children in the SCA and were raised fully in the SCA. And so all of the people that they get to hang out with now as crowns are people that they were also raised with. And how cool is that?
We actually have, so our current majesty in Artemisia, His Majesty, his brother is also on the throne in Atenveld, and mm-hmm. one of their other good buddies is on the thrones in the Outlands. So those three guys used to run around camp and hit each other with boffer swords, and now they're all sitting there as kings, and it's really pretty cool. And that's really what we're trying to do with the youth program is to help encourage them to do the same sorts of things that we do. And that's why I love this idea of local guilds and having them and really build that bridge between the youth stuff and the adult stuff. Mm-hmm. And you had said something about the page school. So yes, just to let you know, and other viewers, if you haven't seen, there are other episodes for our first 5 shows where we talk about youth combat and youth rapier a little bit, and arts and sciences and the page school, mm-hmm. the youth and family achievement program, which is the YAFA program being done in some of the kingdoms. And so one of the things that we were talking about, Dame Catherine of Ainsdale from the Kingdom of Caid and I have done a couple of shows together, and she and I are working on a project that we're trying to do, and we're going to invite people. You'll see some invites going on, but on the 31st of July, the evening of the 31st, we're doing a Zoom call where we're trying to get together and do sort of what we're doing in the show, but this will be more of a, hey, everybody get together, roll your sleeves up, and let's actually get to work on doing a revamping of the page school and the YAFA program and some of the stuff like what you're talking about, and trying to kind of bring all the best aspects of all that stuff together and actually really build that bridge between the youth and the high school and then becoming an adult, because that transition area, we just lose kids through there. I've heard that so many times where even the kids were, or the players who were second generation, so they were youth, but they may have gone away for a while because there just wasn't something for them to do during those years. And then they somehow came back. But I think we lose a lot of them once they go away. And my kids are just as guilty as that as well. And I try to keep them involved, but I think puberty and, modern things like girls and things like that.
Ew.
Ew.
Our daughter, her real name is Sarah Jezebel, so we call her Jezzy. Because again, she was Princess Royale so many times, we didn't let her slide either, in that if she wanted to wear the hat, because she had a little circlet that she got to wear, if she wanted to wear the hat, she had to do the job. So we didn't let her just get to run around. If, she had to come and sit court with us, and I would require her. What she did was she would have a task. She would have to, during the event, at some point, find a kid that needed to be recognized for whatever reason, because of a kindness that they did, or because they were helpful somewhere or something. She had to pick a kid who did a thing. And it was also a very useful way for me to help get rid of some of our stuffed animals in our house. Because we had so many stuffed animals that I was like, pick a stuffy, girl, pick a stuffy. And so she would pick a stuffy and she would go to the event and she would play with all the kids and hang out and do stuff, because again, she had to still be respectful and own her position. And at the end of the day, she came up into court and she would call forward one of the youth that she had deemed did something, and she would present them with this stuffed animal from the Princess Royale. And it was a great experience for the kid getting called up, but it was also a good learning experience for her for public speaking and having that responsibility. Like, you don't just get to have a hat and not do the job.
Right. And that's really what the thing is that there's a job involved. And
I don't want her to ever think that being royalty is just all fun and games. No, there's a job.
And I think that's what my kids learned pretty early on too, is that, mom is pretty busy doing youth stuff, but that it's not just at the event. It's, at home, packing up all the stuff and hauling it all to the car and hauling it all back home and all of that kind of stuff. They really learned the hard way early on that,
to respect the work that goes behind.
There is a lot, there's and that's one of the things about the SDA that really drew me in was not that it drew me in, but I really, really respect the idea that the SDA recognizes the fact that none of this happens without people like you, the Pelicans, the people in the background that are actually doing all the work and trying to make it so that you can come and just show up. And we many hands make light work, but there is a lot of times where it's nice to just go to an event and relax. And at least I've been told that. I
don't know what that's like. This is why I made luxuriating my laurelling art. I've decided I'm gonna take naps professionally, everybody. That's my goal. Well, I'm real good at taking naps at events.
I have I've been better the last couple of years, trying to really, limit myself to, okay, I'm only going to do these, 2 things or these 3 things, instead of every hour of the day is filled with something to do. So
I'm going to do another one of these lectures with Aslak talking specifically about luxuriating. So come to that one.
Nice. Nice. I will do that. Okay. So we have about 15 minutes left.
Did you see there's a question?
Oh, I did see that other question. Any idea how to include kids who want to be part of the SCA, but their parents don't play? I've got some kiddos that love coming with mine, but their parents don't get it.
I understand, because it's not for everybody. We're weirdos, and we are a special flavor, right? But again, just be the translational bridge. If you know that those kids who want to come to our game but their parents don't, find out why. Why do they want to be here? What is the thing that is drawing them? Is it the calligraphy and the artwork? Help introduce them to somebody who does that. Or is it the fighting because it's loud and clangy and flashy? Help find somebody to teach them how to do that. But be the bridge. You don't have to be the one to always hold their hand. But if they don't know the people and they don't know that it's attainable, then they won't come back again. So hook them by introducing them to the resources that are the thing that draws them in.
I would also say the parents who don't, this is another comment, the parents who don't get it can oftentimes be shy and or hugely introverted, unlike their kids. I've been there. Making friendly connections as an adult is way harder than making friends as kids. Absolutely.
That's why I have my luxuriating corner. All of my parents who are weirded out by it can come and hang out with me.
I hang out over in the corner with her Grace.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I was going to say is that, so two things. One is I spent 2 or 3 years with my very good friend, Master Cormac, telling me about the SCA before I understood what the SCA was. Because the way he would explain it and what he was interested in didn't leave much room for anything that I would be interested in. I mean, he was more about the fighting and the belly dancing and the drinking. And I'm going, well, sounds good for you, but okay. And I didn't get it until he finally got my 14-year-old son and interested in the fighting and the belly dancing, of course, at the time. And so I was, okay, fine, I'll check this thing out. And if you're really interested in it, let's try it. It's a sport. I always wanted my kids to be able to try things.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went, he started practicing, and then I went to my first event. And at my first event, my eyes opened up and my head blew open because I met Baroness Allura and Rothgar and all these other people who were excellent at talking to you and finding out what are you interested in. Oh, well, there's this other part of the SCA that does this. Oh, you like to cross stitch. Well, there was this thing in the Middle Ages called blackwork, blah, 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 blah. And I was hooked from that moment on. So maybe talking to some of those parents of the kids, the kids are probably really excited about, well, I want to go and have fun with my friends. And maybe they're only explaining, the fun time they had climbing trees with their buddy and not necessarily what the whole SCA might be about.
Yeah.
And so that really, I thought was one of them. And the other thing is, you can be the buddy that brings the other people's kids. Just make sure you have releases and everything else, because we've got some legal things that way to do. But absolutely. The other thing is, especially with kids, there is so much garb around that can just be handed down in equipment and things. Kids grow so fast out of stuff. Mm-hmm. So it is something where they might not want their kids to necessarily get into it because they think that there's a financial commitment that they don't want to meet. But especially with youth, there's a lot of loaner stuff and stuff that we can pass along and stuff that people are always growing out of, and it's just going back and forth because they don't wear it long enough to wear it out until it's been through generations of kids sometimes. So.
I still see my daughter's garb worn on kids today, like even last weekend. Yeah. I know that dress.
Yeah. And another thing has disappeared. I'm sorry. Yes, the revamp meeting is for all kingdoms. It will be, I will be posting, I'll go out and post it around on all the kingdoms like I do with the show. It'll be a Zoom meeting, and it'll be, I think we have it set up for 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. my time, which is Mountain Time. So it would be like 9 p.m. Eastern Time on the 31st. but I'll create an event and share it again. I did share it once, but we'll go back around. And yes, all kingdoms are welcome. Anybody who wants to work on it would be great. So come along. Okay, so I guess I'm going to do a little bit of business, and then I'll ask you to maybe sum up your thoughts, and then ask you for a shout out for some people. So give me just a second. I'm going to go do some business for Cal.
Okay.
Okay, so coming up on Kal-bardr's Corner, July 28th at 7 p.m. Pacific time, we have Ask the Knights, episode 50, Sir Logan and Sir Daoud. This week, the Knights welcome Viscount Sir Daoud Ibn Ali and Baron Sir Logan Pathwarden to answer your burning questions about training, knighthood, their path, and so much more. So send them your inquiries. The only bad question is the one you didn't ask. And July 31st at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, we have Coffee with Cal, and this topic is mercenary culture. When we take the field for war, most of us follow behind our crown and kingdom for only the reward of a job well done and the glory that comes with it. There are others, however, both peer and non-peer alike, that have chosen a different route, the route of the mercenary. These swords for hire have their own code of ethics and their own agendas, mostly seeming to center around who has the deepest pouch. Joining Cal this week is a founding member of Blackwood, a mercenary of Free Company of the West, Sir Neil Greenstone. Grab your coffee, your coin, and bring your questions. And next on Look Inside, next month, we will be meeting on Monday, August 29th. And we're going to interview two of my favorite people in the world, siblings and ships in the wind, second generation players, her ladyship Rachel von Kleinmuller and his lordship Ulrich von Violet. We'll talk about their path growing up in the SCA, what they would have liked to see, and what they would like to see more of now. So again, second generation players, and they have been there and done that, all of that. And they are the ones who, again, won the Sweet, Sweet Taste of Nepotism award from their parents. Last, so a couple more things. If you want to help out any of our shows on KK Productions or Kal-bardr's Corner and join our grand wall of patrons, you can check us out to support Patreon at patreon.com/KK Productions. You can also find us out on Redbubble. You can buy stickers and Let's Do Nightly Things sheets and all sorts of fun things for any of the KK Production shows. Last, if you would like to contact me for future show topics, questions, or concerns, or anything about anything you hear, my email is here at the bottom, isgerth@gmail.com. If you'd like to contact our guest, you can contact her Grace Tianna at her email, nikkipoohead@hotmail.com.
You'll never forget it.
And so last thoughts for me, I think local youth guilds are really a great way to show the teenage youth, that transitional period of youth, some of the different ways we do things. Picking a device, how you set up a device, how you pick a name, what's your purpose going to be? It's sort of a lot of the same things that we do when we form a household and that sort of thing. But I think it's a really good idea. Kids like to belong, and belonging in a special little group of their own like that makes them maybe feel like they're not quite so lost out there in the world and just kind of along for the ride with their parents. So that's my takeaway today. What would you say, Your Grace?
Yeah, just because they're little humans doesn't mean that they don't have the ability to show respect and be responsible. And they will learn to respect that and the more you give to them, so they can kind of prove it to others. So just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to give them responsibilities. I think that they will surprise you.
Absolutely. Okay, and a shout out for a persons?
Oh my goodness, since we were talking about raising my child, how about just some of the people who were lovingly enough to raise my child specifically? There's a lovely woman in the barony named Lady Bente and Lady Bayok, who were running the youth guilds when Jessie was the youngest. Lady or Baroness Aurora, I'm sure I'm going to get everybody's titles wrong. They're all ladies. Aurora also helped when she was in charge of the youth guild. And bless her heart, rest in peace, Mom Rowena was the one who picked up my daughter and ran off with her when I had her tied onto a scarf. So she was definitely my nanny when Jessie was the youngest. But yeah, I've had some really fantastic support throughout the years raising my child, including you, Ísgerðr, even though Jessie was a little bit older by the time you rolled in. But yeah, you all are holding a special place in my heart for helping raise my own child.
Oh, thank you. She was always so lovely. I actually, my favorite memory of Jessie was working with her at the Crown Tournament here in Great Falls, and it was one of those days where she had a special task for you, and she came and audited my youth activity, and she was taking it. I think she was probably 16 or 17 at that reign, and she was really taking it very seriously. It was fun.
Good.
So my shout out today is another player from Artemisia, and I apologize, all my people are Artemisians, but it's my kingdom. But the person I would like to talk about today is Her Ladyship Sigrid. I don't know her full SCA name, but she is serving right now as our kingdom equestrian marshal. And when I first joined the SCA just about 10 years ago now, she was a shy little 14, 13-year-old, something like that. She came and I did, it was one of my very first events, and I did a youth bardic, and she came and brought her violin and played it. And then she went through a period of time where we didn't see her much because she was, that surly teenage area.
Mm-hmm.
And she is now back, with full force. And I just want to say, Sigrid, I appreciate everything that you're doing. You've jumped in and back into everything with, full force with your rapier. And with everything that you're doing with equestrian, we have an event coming up in a couple of weeks, and we actually have equestrian happening in the kingdom again now. And so I just want to say thank you so much for everything you're doing. She just graduated from UNI. Where's UNI?
University.
Oh, university. Yes,
University.
And she just graduated. On top of it all, just graduated with her degree. So yeah, she's an amazing young lady, and I just love to see people, even though they struggle for a while during that certain period, come back. So thank you, Sigrid.
Nice.
Okay, thank you so much, Your Grace. This has been just lovely.
Thank you. It's wonderful to see and hear your voice. I haven't seen you in a hot minute.
No, I haven't seen you in so long. It's been a while.
We'll get out there again. Don't worry.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. Okay. Well, thank you again for everyone for coming and checking in with us. Thanks for your comments and questions and ideas. Come and join us on our planning meeting on the 31st of July. Come back next month and meet some fabulous second generation players who always have a smile on their face. And we'll be back here again next month when we take another look inside youth activities together. Thank you. Bye-bye.